Okay, this is a special board meeting of May 24, 2021. It's now 5:33. We will begin roll call. Please, Mary.
President Lay.
Here.
Vice President Herrera.
Here.
Clerk Chavez. Here. Member Cortese. Here. Member Doe.
Here.
Thank you.
Awesome. We are here. So I'm going to move to agenda item 1.02. So welcome to the special board meeting, May 24, 2021. Are there any members of the public who would like to provide public comment to the board on a closed session agenda item at this time? Did I see anyone? No? All right. Thank you, Mary. All right. If we don't have anyone, then we can reconvene our meeting at 6 p.m. We will move to the closed session. Do I need to read the disclaimer?
I don't think so.
So, all right. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Let's move to the closed session and we'll reconvene back at 6 p.m. Thank you. Okay. First of all, I apologize for we have a little delay. We should start at 6, but we have a closed session that will run 15 more minutes. So let me start with the agenda 4.01. I want to welcome to the special board meeting of May 24, 2021. Member of the public, please submit your public comment online by accessing the form on the district homepage at www.esuhsd.org or the link on the agenda. Please limit your written comments to no more than 1,000 characters in length. Public comments submitted online will be read into the record. You may also raise your virtual hand in Zoom to request to speak. You will have 2 minutes to speak. Please note, all meetings are recorded. All regular and special meeting of the board trustee and board study session are streamed live on meeting nights and are also available for viewing the day after the meeting by accessing the district YouTube channel listed on the district webpage at www.esuhsd.org under the quick link section. The board is not able to respond to items that are not on the agenda or any personnel issues. Your comment will be read into the record and will be directed to the superintendent and or the appropriate staff member for response. Interpretation of this meeting in Spanish and Vietnamese can be heard by accessing the link and following the instructions shown on the agenda and the district website. For 5.01 adoption, superintendent and board member may request that item will be removed from the agenda and consideration and carried to a future board meeting for consideration and or action. I don't see any board member would like to request remove. So we can move to 6.01, which is discussion and or action to adopt proposed resolution number 2021-2022-34 in support of Assembly Bill 104. We propose addition of section 49066.5 to the Education Code. This item was requested by board member Cortese. But before we start, I'd like to say a few words that I really appreciate all my board colleagues who spend a lot of hours and to adjust their time for the special meeting, and also want to thank you, General Counsel, and all administrators, staff, stakeholder like Esther, teachers, parents, students who care about the resolution, and of this item is very dear to their heart and to my heart. We are discussing this evening, and I hope that we will reach to a conclusion so we can move on with many issues for reopening school. And I want to open this for the item 6.01, and we tied in with 6.02, but I want to mention about out of concern for students during the challenging time, we took action to address the difficulty that students have experienced during the pandemic. Therefore, we on this board took a vote on January 28. We as the board vote for change to F grade to no pass, with the explicit understanding that this vote has the support of our teachers, specifically Esther. Subsequently, we learned that Esther leadership had not raised many questions. However, as we know, silence does not mean that agreement. As we were bombarded by many emails from teachers for supporting, for not supporting. So since then, we learned the fuller picture and of the unintended consequences of our vote, as the old saying, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. So we have learned that per ad code, we might not have the authority to pass such resolution. We also learned that our resolution in January 28 also did not take into account of other students who could have done better and would have received a better grade under normal circumstances. In the next few minutes or hours, you might heard my fellow board members speak about the board declarations. Please allow me to read this declaration in its entirety. We stand for authentic, co-creative partnerships and declare that equity for our students is neither optional nor non-negotiable. For this, we hold ourselves accountable. Authentic, co-creative partnership, equity, they are the hallmarks of our declaration. For me, authentic begins with honesty. It is not about being right all the time, but being honest when we fall short. Because of our resolution of January 28, a student who put in some work and received a D is now in a worse position than a student who did not put in any work and received an F. How is that equitable? If we are being authentic, then we should be honest and acknowledge that we fall short. Our resolution January 28 falls short of our goal of equity for our students. We should also be authentic with our teachers. Ed code specifically state the authority of grading rests with teachers. How can we say that we stand for co-creative partnerships when we take away that authority from teachers? For these reasons and more, I would like to amend on January 28 vote with the teacher who will have entrusted with the authority to do the right thing for our student. I want to do the right thing and open and listen to my board colleagues and also teachers and public comments. I think I would like to ask Manuel Herrera as the Vice President, want to have the second opening statement before we start the discussion and action to adopt the item 6.01.
Madam President, I would prefer to make a preliminary statement when we go to item 6.02.
Okay, that's fine. All right. So 6.01, discussion and action to adopt proposed resolution 2021. I'm asking General Counsel Rogelio, could you summarize this item for us?
Yes, good evening, board. Can you hear me, Madam President?
Yes, I can hear you.
Thank you.
Yes.
So in December of last year, 2020, AB Assembly Bill 104 was introduced into the legislature on an urgency basis or with an urgency clause, which means that if it's ultimately passed by the legislature and signed by the governor, it takes effect immediately. AB 104 deals with issues that this board has been wrestling with since the January 28th resolution. What AB 104 proposes to do is it proposes to add a new section to the education code for purposes of this instructional year only. And what it would do is it would allow parents to either parents or students who are over the age of 18 who are enrolled in a district course, in a district school and in a district course this year to apply and request that the district change a letter grade to a pass or no pass in any course taken. And that upon receiving an application and request, the district would not have discretion, but would have to change the grade as requested by the legislature. It wouldn't not only apply to F letter grades, but it would apply to all letter grades issued in a class, C's, D's, F's, even A's and B's, if that was the student's or the parent's request. It would also provide that the grade change would not negatively affect the pupil's grade point average, and it would have some other effects as well in terms of state aid for higher education. And so this resolution that's before the board is in support of AB 104, but only insofar as AB 104 would add section 49066.5 to the California Education Code. The district has not yet received or has not yet made an analysis, a full analysis of the merits of the rest of the legislation. So we are just, this resolution is focused solely on the proposed addition of this education code section that would allow for the grade changes for the entirety of this instructional year. And I'm happy to answer any questions if anyone has any.
All right, I'll open for my board colleagues. Any other comments before I open for public comments?
And this is on 6.01.
Yeah, 6.01 for AB 104.
And the intent here is, per the resolution, for the board to go on record in support of this legislation at the state level. And for those who aren't aware, it is something that has moved with swiftly through the assembly and now into the state Senate. And there's every expectation that this will emerge out of the state legislature for the governor's signature. And it will provide a pathway legally in compliance with Ed Code for no pass options that have to be granted when they're requested. It requires a proactive action on the part of parent, guardian, student. And so the board is looking to go on record in support of this state legislation, which it'll be a matter of, I think, 2 or 3 weeks or less for this to pass through and be signed into law. So I, for one, am in support of this resolution.
Okay, any other board member have any comment about AB 104, item 6.01? If I don't...
I'll save my comments till after public comment.
Sure. Glenn Vanderzee, do we have any public comments for this item, Glenn?
There are no hands raised on this item, nor is there any public written comment on 6.01.
All right.
I'll do the same as well. I'll say for after.
But we're going to need to vote on this item.
Yeah, we need to vote for this item.
That's fine.
So Manuel, you already has the motion. I didn't hear any second.
Well, I didn't make a motion, but I'll go ahead and move for approval of the resolution.
Okay, Mr. Herrera, move for approval.
There is a public comment or questions on the chat group. I don't know if this is something that Glenn wants to respond to, or whether we want to read that or not.
Glenn, do we have chat from?
That consider a public comment or?
I would ask that members of the public raise their hand or use the formal written public link to make sure that we're clear on a difference between a chat and what is actually being offered as formal public comment.
Are we going to read the chat or we wait for that?
The chat does not constitute public comment. Is what acting superintendent, what Mr. Vanderzee.
Associate Superintendent of Human Resources is letting you know that many of the items in the chat are not public comment, but chat. And so we would ask members of the public to utilize the link to formal written comment or to raise their hand. And I thank you for doing so. Greg Barnett, we will allow you to speak. You have 2 minutes. You will need to unmute. Greg Barnett.
Yeah, thank you for that. Sorry about that.
You got it.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that my question was answered by Mr. Herrera about whether or not AB 104 had passed, and it has not, and it seems that it probably will, and it seems pertinent to me that the board should let the state legislature make the decision and be in support of it, as I will be. But it doesn't seem that the board should move beforehand to make such a move when it is in violation, as I read it, of the state ed code as it currently stands today. That would be my public statement. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Any other public comment? Okay, if we don't have any public comment, we have a motion move approval from board member Herrera.
I'll second.
Okay.
Sorry.
Patty
first.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think we do roll call, right, Mary?
Just quickly, my comment about AB 104 is that I really appreciate the legislature making this move. I think that they are recognizing something that all of us, including our teachers and everybody, that this has been a very difficult year. This, unfortunately, AB 104 does not help us with our issue tonight specifically, because this will not, even on the fast track it's on, it will not, we hope it passes, and if it does pass, it will not be in time for our own grading process. So we still need to do what we need to do tonight, and yet I hope that this passes and benefits our students and students all over the state. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to ask General Counsel about this AB 104 is, so if this AB 104 will pass, how does it affect our student and our teachers in terms of grading, if we pass before legislature make the approval?
So some of the answer to that may depend on what the board decides to do in item 6.02 this evening. But if the January 28th resolution remained in place and AB 104 was passed and signed into law, then it would, since AB 104 is more expansive, it would essentially supersede the board's January 28th resolution in effect.
Yeah, and it specifically applies to the year 2020, 2021.
Only. All right. All right. So I don't hear any more comment. Lorena, do you?
Yeah, thank you. The one thing I would add is, yes, there is a high likelihood that this will pass, and I support of this resolution, and that it would supersede, to council's point, whatever we do as a district this year. And in addition to this, I think it's important that we highlight, yes, this is our stance, but there is also an expectation, at least on my behalf, that our district communicates and engages with families and students at least a few times to make sure, because we cannot assume that people will know that this is a thing, right? Or that this is available to them. And we want to make sure that we get through to as many students and families as needed. And we just don't know what the circumstances are out there for people. And so we need to do our due diligence and just really, like I said, at least 2 rounds of really thoughtful outreach to make sure that all of our students and our parents, our families know.
All right, thank you, Board Member Chavez. If I don't see anyone raise the hand for public comment, so let's do the roll call. Mary, please.
Student Governing Board Representative Bruce Nguyen, how do you vote?
I approve.
Thank you. Board roll call vote. President Lay.
Aye.
Vice President Herrera.
Aye.
Clerk Chavez?
Aye.
Member Cortese?
Aye.
Member Doe?
Aye.
Okay, the board passed unanimously for item 6.01 for AB 104. We move to 6.02. Discussion and action regarding district's response to impact of COVID-19 pandemic and distance learning on student performance and grade in fall and spring semester for 2021 instructional year. Discussion and action regarding proposed amendment to adopt emergency resolution 2021-16, converting student semester F grade to no pass, amendment to emergency resolution 2020-2021-02, implementing distance learning in response to the COVID-19 pandemic and continued delegation of authority to take necessary action to implement the district distance learning plan and to protect students and staff from the spread of coronavirus COVID-19. So I want to open up for our board member, Manuel Herrera. Would like to open this statement?
Sure. Thank you. As we get into the discussion this evening, and it's important for the board, the reason we scheduled a special meeting is important for the board to more clearly and immediately hear the voices of concerned stakeholders. And we find ourselves unexpectedly in a situation where it seemed on January 28th, like we were in alignment with all across administration, the board, concerned stakeholders, and subsequently what we've discovered is a strong concern and strong pushback on this issue having to do with how students are graded during this pandemic year. And I just want to share some of the way it's landed for me, not just substantively, but emotionally. And I'm going to cite a couple of passages from some of the emails that I've received so that you can feel it the way I felt it. And the first one here, I'm just taking selected passages from various emails. I know that all of us are suffering from the pandemic, but as an educator, I would like to ask not to vote for F to NP, NP being no pass. Many students, despite the difficulties of distance learning, are excelling and doing extra efforts in their classes, while others are blaming the pandemic and doing nothing in their classes, such as not showing up, not doing homework, and they're deserving an F. Besides, by changing the F to no pass, you're violating the ed code. As an ESTA member, I would like to request the choice to assign either an F grade or an NP grade for the first semester. Let people that are working with students make their own decision, since we know exactly what's going on in our classes. Another one said, the board has no right or legal authority to require teachers to grade a certain way. Collaborate, provide opportunities for discourse. Stay out of the classroom unless you're willing to understand the classroom. Trust teachers, appeal to teachers, court teachers, sell your point of view. If you ask and you create the opportunities for discourse, then most will follow. The ones that don't can be dealt with individually. Then another one, my biggest issue apart from the ed code violation part of all of this are the D grades I assigned. Students who were coming to class and doing next to nothing, but who would respond to me verbally or in the chat, turn on their cameras in breakout rooms, these kids received credit, while those who completely avoided class or logged in and then were AWOL received F grades. So the kids who made an effort have had their GPA adversely affected. Had the NP been an option for me to use before the end of the semester, I would have used this in consultation with my students to aid them in this difficult time. Like this whole idea of creating a separate class to address ethnic studies, the district has taken the easy way with this F/NP policy. We teachers have been helping students all along, and we know who is struggling better than those of you outside the classroom. Today, we could have made Together, we could have made a strong policy to support our most vulnerable kids. But then we start hearing, I agree, excuse me, I am a second-year special education teacher, and I'm emailing because our union site representative sent an email asking for folks to email you to express distaste in the decision to change F grade to NP. However, I do not agree with their stance, but rather I agree with your decision entirely. As members of a district that values equity, I believe that changing the F grades to NP was a fair and equitable choice for all involved. I've also had conversations with some of our top performing general education students, such as those in AP classes, and they have expressed concerns about their grades falling on the intense online workload that distance learning has brought. Honestly, it's saddening to me that so many teachers seem to care more about labeling students with F grades as opposed to allowing them the grade of NP and an ability to make up the grade next year. I'll close with one more. I would like you to know that not all teachers' staff agree with ESTA's stance on pushing to remove the NP option from first semester. I, for one, do not agree and think that this was an incredibly appropriate move by the district in the face of an unprecedented situation. I also really appreciated the letter you wrote to staff regarding their concerns, and you explicitly stated this is not going to become precedent, but rather what is right given the current situation. So thank you. Considering our students' mental health during this and meeting them where they are is absolutely 100% what we need to be doing if we are going to make a systemic change in the educational system. So again, thank you. Please know that not all of ESTA believes in this fight, and some of us think that this isn't the time nor the place to have this fight. I have like reams of emails that reflect those sentiments on both sides. And for the board, it's been an especially emotional experience. When we took action on January 28 to convert from F to no pass, it seemed like a no-brainer. This pandemic has upended everything in every sector of society. And our students, I can understand teachers making heroic efforts, not only to deliver instruction, but to provide support. And yet I can't imagine how a teacher is able to close the gap for what opened up in the loss of support, in the loss of community on campus. We have no idea of home conditions. A lot of folks just imagine that we have a kind of Leave It to Beaver family where they can get support at home and do their work and what have you. But there are some home environments that are turbulent. They're overcrowded. It is not a learning environment. There's no way that a teacher can step into that gap and close it for all students. And there was a significant spike, and which is what caused the action in January 28th by the board. If you look at the data, I think you can generalize and say that there were probably 1,000 more students affected with F grades than was the norm pre-pandemic, and probably 8,000 or so more F grades than is the norm pre-pandemic. Something did happen, and it moved the board deeply, and we thought we had agreement, in terms of key stakeholders, including ESTA leadership. And so here we are. We hear the teachers that this is, in the view of ESTA and teachers, we hear the view that this is just black and white, not a legal thing for the board to do ex post facto, after the fact. Some are even now contesting doing it before the fact, that the board just ought to, stay out of this. And yet what we're looking to do is what's right for our kids, as teachers are as well. And it helps that there's something moving in the state legislature that will provide a framework to reconcile the various concerns. I had one more point here, and I'm trying not to lose it in my mind, and then I'll close my comment. and I'm not remembering it. So that's a framework for me for beginning to listen. And then we're going to deliberate whether we ought to leave the January 28 resolution as is, or whether we should rescind it, or whether we should modify it. And if we modified it, it would be to give teachers the options, to assign a no-pass NP grade wherever they have Fs, and really students that are affected with D grades, and just, AP students who are affected with even a B+ grade who want another shot. There's much that's implied here, but one assumption that I am operating on is that teachers care about our kids, administrators care about our kids, the board cares about our kids. So we're going to find our way tonight with what's the best way to hold us all together. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Vice President Manuel Herrera. Any other board comments before I'm going to open to a public comments? If I don't hear anything else, so Mr. Vanderzee, do we have any public comment?
Yeah, currently we have 2 raised hand and 1 written. So we'll work with those with raised hands first. Our first speaker is Jenny Davis.
Please go ahead, Jenny Davis.
Hi, good evening. I'm speaking on behalf of the administrators in Eastside tonight. ACES would like to declare its continuing full support of the board's action on January 28th in setting the no pass rather than the Fs for the 2021 school year. This was an empathetic, practical, and morally right decision for this unprecedented year. World events forced our students, whose entire educational career has been in person, inside of a classroom, with a teacher just a few feet away, to move to a virtual setting with very little preparation or support. Many of our students, maybe even most of them, have succeeded in the distance learning environment. Some have even thrived, but a number of our students have not. And a large percentage among those who have not are our most vulnerable and under-resourced students. Throughout this year, myself and my fellow administrators have received a constant stream of emails and phone calls from students and their parents relaying how overwhelmed and helpless they have felt. Since the board initiated the no pass policy for this school year, these frantic emails and calls have slowed. This policy took the pressure off and reassured our students and families, while they are not guaranteed to pass their classes this year, not passing will not have a lasting stain on their GPA. I know that some feel that students who receive a D do not benefit from this policy, and I kindly remind the board that a student who receives a D receives 5 credits towards graduation, while a student who received a no pass does not. In Eastside, we rightfully and consistently refer back to our commitment to equitable communities. This policy was made in the spirit of equity. I asked my colleagues in ESTA to recognize that this was an unprecedented move for an unprecedented time. Innumerable conversations with teachers have highlighted how many have felt frustrated, limited, and unable to perform to their prior expectations. We would hope and trust they realize the same was true for the vast majority of our students. We have talked a lot this year about rebuilding the trust between district leadership and ESTA. ACES trust that this is not a policy that will continue to exist when we return to our normal educational environment. I ask that ESTA trust this as well. The board made the right decision with the no pass policy for the 2021 school year. ACES recommends that the board take no action on this item.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Thomas Brittendall.
Go ahead, Thomas.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I do not blame anyone for making a well-intended choice that turns out to be more complicated than originally thought. On January 28th, the Board of Trustees took a well-intended action by changing all semester F grades to a no pass. For my part, I listened to the January 14th and 28th board meetings and at that time thought little of the FNP proposal and ultimate decision. If at that time I had known what would result of the proposal, I would have absolutely added my voice to the concerns offered by ESTA leaders at the January problem-solving meeting. For this, I know not only have regret, I apologize to everyone involved for not having better vision. But that is the beauty of being able to reflect upon past decisions. We can change and improve upon them. As concerns escalated in early February, it became clear that the board's well-intended action on January 28th violated California Ed Code. On December 20th, 2020, the California Assembly introduced AB 104, a bill that would offer to the students the ability to request that their letter grade for the 2020-21 school year be reflected as a pass or no pass on their transcript. This change in a student's letter grade is essentially the same action taken by the district on January 28th, when they uniformly changed F grades to reflect as a no pass on student transcripts. However, the Legislative Council's digest of AB 104, the summary section of the law, directly states that school districts currently lack the authority to make such a change, which is why the California legislature is in the process of revising Ed Code for this school year. The district fulfilled their duty prior to the start of the school year by prescribing the regulations that teachers then use to issue grades at the end of the first semester. These grading regulations were in effect at the beginning of the school year, at the end of the first semester, and remain in effect up to this very day. There were no clerical or mechanical mistakes made by teachers. There was no fraud, bad faith, or incompetency made by the teachers. And the more than 1,000 teachers were not given an opportunity to be included in the discussions relating to the changes made to their students' grades. There should be no wishful thinking that the court will side on behalf of the district, as AB 104 explicitly states that existing law prohibits school districts from making uniform grade changes, even if those changes are well-intended and made with equity in mind. Even if AB 104 passes, the law would still not allow the January 20th decision to stand. AB 104 would allow the district to issue a pass or no pass to students if their parent, guardian, or education rights holder makes the request, or if the student is 18 and makes the request themselves. Neither the current California Ed Code nor the revisions lined out in AB 104 give the district the ability to uniformly change student grades on their own as occurred on January 28th. If the board amends the January 20th decision today and allows teachers to apply the NP to their students rather than waiting for a California court system to strike down the January 20th decision and have all NP grades uniformly revert back to an F. More students will benefit by amending the FNP decision for the first semester and applying the same revised policy to the second. Trust that teachers are capable of doing the job that the state of California has entrusted to us and us alone, which is the responsibility to fairly evaluate the performance of our students. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas.
Our next speaker is Scott Lubbs.
Let's go ahead, Scott. Scott, please go ahead.
Sorry, I turned into my parents there for a moment, left the mute on. I know this change came from a good place. The January 28th resolution was a move to make an equitable solution in a very tough time. However, I feel, the law says the grades are within my purview, and I think this is the right thing done the wrong way. I will definitely go back to use that NP option for a large number of students when I have that. I also know it's not going to be all of them. So I want to make sure that this is what we do the right thing, the right way. While I do hear this is not a precedent, I also don't like allowing this is not a precedent is a bad precedent to set. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Scott. Any other public comment, Glenn?
Yes, our next public comment comes from Jack Hamner.
Go ahead, Jack.
Yeah, hi, my name is Jack Hamner. I'm the president of Eastside Teachers Association. And before I read my statement, I would just like to remind everybody of two things. And one is that we are not advocating for teachers to give kids Fs. We are just asking that the Ed Code be followed and that teachers be given the option to assign grades as the Ed Code states. And the other thing is as this all started to come down in February, up until now, I have heard the same statement from many board members over and over. And the statement that I have heard from them is, oh, if we would have known ESTA had an issue with this, we would have postponed it and we would have investigated, and we would have collaborated to work all of this out. So what I'm going to do right now is read the letter that I sent the board 2 weeks ago that is demonstrating that we have an issue with second semester spring grades, and yet we're still here voting on it tonight instead of attempting to work this out. So what I wrote is on behalf of the Eastside Teachers Association and the almost 1,200 educators that we represent, we formally object to the board resolution regarding student grades, which you will be considering at tonight's meeting. The resolution to change second semester student grades unlawfully and inappropriately strips ESTA teachers of their right to exercise professional judgment in evaluating and grading their students' academic performance. As you are no doubt aware, the California legislature has recognized that certificated educators can and should exercise their own independent professional judgment in assigning student grades. And little wonder, because it is the certificated educators and none other who are charged with awesome responsibility of instructing the community's youth, who review student work and are best positioned to assess the student's performance and growth. This right is to assign grades is codified in the California Ed Code, which provides that when grades are given for any course of instruction taught in a school district, the grade given to each pupil shall be the grade determined by the teacher of the course, and the determination of the pupil's grade by the teacher in absence of clerical or mechanical mistake, fraud, bad faith, or incompetency, and shall be final. The resolution that the board will be called upon to consider at its upcoming meeting tonight violates both the spirit and the letter of that provision of Ed Code. It deprives the district's professional educators of their statutory right to exercise considered judgment in assigning student grades. It does this by unilaterally converting each and every second semester failing grade, no matter what the circumstances are, into a no-pass grade. And if approved, the resolution would thus entail the wholesale overturning and rewriting of assigned grades, and in the process, disregard the teacher's professional judgment. The district would be at once violating the law and sending a perfectly clear message to its teachers that their dedication and their compassion and their judgment have no value. We understand, of course, the reasons for this resolution. The past year has been one of unparalleled challenges, but rest assured that the district's professional educators are second to none in being sensitive to and appreciative of the fact that our students have labored under extraordinarily trying circumstances. And when the time comes to assign second semester grades, the district's teachers will, as they have all year long, take those challenges into consideration. Accordingly, we iterate our appeal that the district respects its professional educators and trusts that they will continue to act as they have throughout this challenging pandemic and before, with the best interest of the students in mind. And we request that the board not approve any resolution that violates our rights regarding assigning grades. And thank you.
Thank you, Board President Jack Hammer. Any other comments, Glenn?
There's no more public comment through raised hands, yet there is written comment. Associate Superintendent Marquez, if you'd be willing to read the written comment on this item.
Yes, the first written comment is submitted by Elizabeth Milkey, staff member, and it reads, Eastside Union High School District has undermined its teachers' efforts to provide basic ed during distance learning. This began with the decision that students would receive no lower grade than their March 2020 grade. Even A students passed on their last 2 months of ed. This attitude left over from 2020 has carried into the 2021 school year. Deadlines are meaningless. Students don't respond to chat messages even when they are quote, on Zoom. Copying is rampant. Students are tardy to Zoom without documentation because teachers aren't allowed to mark tardies. Students' false beliefs, such as the East Side is going to change our grades and pass us, are due to your undermining illegal no pass rules set up without teacher input. You have made a travesty of distance learning education. Not every student experienced electronic COVID hardship. You have created an uneducated group of students who will pay the price for your decisions. Don't illegally undermine teachers by assuming that you know who deserves an NP, no pass, rather than an F grade. The next comment is submitted by Lynn Johnson, staff member. As teachers, we not only have the contractual and legal right to give grades, it's what we are trained for. As teachers during the fall distance learning, we spent 6 hours per week for 18 weeks with these students. You, the board, spent none. If there is a reason to give an NP, it should be up to us. You, the board members, have no basis to assign grades. Some students did struggle, but some struggled to do well, and these students earned their grades. Some kids did nothing and were not penalized. Our job is to train these kids to face the rest of their lives. By giving them a do-over, we are crippling these kids. They can retake classes with an F. They do not need to be coddled. We are fully aware of how chaotic some of our kids' home lives are. You, the district, are not somehow prescient about that. We know more than you do. We know more than you do. We are there every day. 106 hours more per kid than any board member. Give teachers the option to give the no passes we see fit. Anthony Cardo, staff member. In any case, the F to MP change was illegal then and is now, regardless of what the legislature is working on for the future, and could be corrected with collaboration. The board members' talk of emotional reactions tonight is wasting time. The board has neither tonight nor in its very long excuse email answered why they didn't just ask teachers nicely to consider syllabus-based, equitable, and teachable opportunities for students to recover their grades. If the board had, they would have found that much of the staff had such already cooking. We have an equity statement and page upon page of stakeholder stuff. Where was the conversation with the stakeholders before the F2 no pass change? This is not about feelings, it's about due process. The F2 no pass change has to be recognized as a mistake, as is required of adults, and corrected. Then we can talk about how to help our students out. That is the end of public written comment.
Thank you, Teresa Marcus. I would like to ask General Counsel to summarize we have 4 resolutions, 1, 2, 3, 4, and I like General Counsel to summarize each resolution.
Before we go there, Madam President,
yes,
I'd like to partially respond to some of the comments that have been made.
Sure.
And that's what was escaping me in my preliminary statement. And that is the board, in its current understanding of legalities, is not persuaded that the action that we took on January 28 runs afoul of the law. And that may sound incredible to teachers who believe and in a sense know that that's absolute, that there's an absoluteness to this. But the legal understanding that we've operated with is that the board has strong legal position to set a grading system. And I know that invites a discussion about the definition of the phrase grading system. And the law does not stipulate whether it's prior, during, or after grades being issued. But certainly the board has strong legal position to set a grading system. And further, the board has legal position to establish the methodology for calculating grade point averages. And in this instance, we believed and still believe that there is a basis. It's a fine point of law. It's one in which ESTA has expressed a complete disagreement with. And yet that's the legal advice that we understand and are operating with. And nevertheless, we too want to find our way to stay in partnership, maintain trust, find our way forward in this. And so these potential resolutions, that are now going to be discussed, the legal counsel will summarize them, provide us alternatives. And, our desire is to not have to have these finer points of law determined in a court system, but as we currently understand it, there is ground legally for this. And yet, by the time this evening is over, and especially in light of AB 104, I'm hoping that we can find the path forward. And so, thank you.
Thank you, Board Vice President Manuel Herrera. General Counsel, would you like to summarize our 4 resolutions, please? Rogelio, are you there? Okay, I don't hear from Rogelio.
So we can just say ourselves, each of the resolutions at the top right has a number. So we've already acted on number 1, which is to support AB 104, a resolution for that. And
right.
The one number two is about rescinding the January 28th resolution, which would then allow the F grades to remain as is. And resolution number 3 is to amend the board's January 28 action that would make it optional for teachers to assign no pass or NP for the fall grades. And then resolution numbered 4 is an action by the board to take a position in advance of grades being issued. And grades are due the 27th, I believe, or at the end of the week. And one of the criticisms the board received was it had acted after grades had been issued. Resolution number 4 is for the board to take action in advance of grades being issued and to do what it legally is empowered to do, which is to determine a grading system and determine the method of GPA, calculating the GPAs. So those are on the table right now. Resolution 2, number 2, resolution number 3, resolution number 4 as ways that we can take action tonight.
Okay, any other board member has any comments before we take action for this?
Can y'all hear me? Hello? Okay. So just to make sure in terms that I'm understanding the way that today's structure of meeting is happening, there's one item right now, 6.02, and there are 4 resolutions that we are considering, or how are we going to, how is
three remaining? We've acted on the first one.
104, yeah, AB 104. Okay, great. But how is that going to happen, and how is dialogue going to happen? I'm curious. I have some thoughts, but I don't know when I'm going to share them, depending on how the vote happens.
Well, I really think, Madam President, that it's going to be helpful for the board and for those who are participating in the meeting if we have a general discussion about what each of these options presents and ask questions or have others request to make a comment as we discuss this before we then go one by one to vote on them. But we ought to be discussing the framework and just generally first.
Okay, so
Rogelio is back online. I can see him now.
Yes, if we could do a mic check with Rogelio. Rogelio, can you be heard?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Board Vice President Herrera just went through the 3 resolutions on this item. I don't know if you had the chance to hear that. And
I did not.
Okay.
So Rogelio, all I did was just characterize that the resolution that is numbered 2 is to rescind the board's action, which would then leave Fs as they are. And number 3 is to make optional the NP grade for the fall 2020 grades for the teachers to revisit the issue and decide on their own. And number 4 addresses the spring semester. I just generally characterized each of those. Yeah, that's it. And that number four is acting in advance of the grades being issued by the 27th, which addresses one of the criticisms of the board's action on January 28th.
And so if I could offer a further point of clarity, I hope, resolutions 1 through 3 pertain to the fall semester, and we will ultimately vote on one of those. Is that correct?
Resolution 1 pertains solely to AB 104, the resolution in support of.
Okay. So All right, so what will we, yeah, so okay, so we have two resolutions for the fall semester.
Correct, and that's
then we
number 2
also
and
have
3.
for the board's consideration, resolution that we adopted, that we could then we could take no action and allow that to stand.
That's correct.
So there's three options to consider with regard to the fall semester. That would be do nothing new. It would be to rescind completely the resolution or amend the resolution to allow optional NPs and to also extend the opportunity of NPs to students and their families if they choose who receive Ds.
That's correct with regards to the fall grades, and in the framework for that is discussion on number 2 and number 3 resolutions. And then number 4 addresses the spring semester.
Right. So I would say we should address the spring semester separately. Correct. And just decide. We've already done the AB 104. So now we're just focused on the fall semester, and there are three options where we can go.
Yes. Right.
Okay. And now, Board Member Herrera, you were proposing that we consider sort of as a conversation to weigh in on each of those three options, like what the impact would be.
Yeah, let's deliberate openly. We're in a public meeting before we go to item, for each resolution.
Sure.
Yeah.
So we want to open the discussion on the item, option number 2, which is rescind the January 28 resolution, changing the falling grade designation from F to NP for fall semester 2020 grade, which will have the effect of restoring a letter F grade that semester.
Okay. So Madam President, again, before we consider each item like that, let's have a general discussion on our perspectives, our questions, our comments to each other, and so on.
Yes, so I'm open to hear from our board colleagues. Anyone want to start first for the option number 2 that we want to discuss?
Option 2 or 3 or no action.
Right. So we're not specific on the option, but just talk deliberate on our general conversation first, Board President, which is what Vice President Manuel Herrera has said.
Yeah.
Okay. To me, I think it's, a few minutes ago, we already voted to support AB 104. And I would like to take this opportunity to really appreciate President Estaf Jackhammer to point out that, existing law required the governing board of the school district to prescribe regulations requiring the evaluation of pupil achievement for each marking period, where the teacher provided pupil with a grade for a course. Existing law requires the grade in the absence of clerical or mechanical mistake, fraud, and bad faith or incompetency to be final. So to me, I think that I would like to have the option number 3 to amend the January 28 resolution by reverting the authority of grading back to where it has always belonged, and give the teacher the option to grade our student. Because I think that is, we've been talking a lot. We heard from, teachers, we heard from, parents, and we've been taking a lot of time to discuss about this issue. And I don't want us to be involved in the legal challenge. And we all know that this is the issue that we take in after grading of the semester of fall 2021. So I think that we should talk about it, and if we can come to the conclusion and we can vote consciously for our decision on the January 28 resolution, with the option number 3 or not. So I'm open up for other board colleagues would like to have any comments. you know, I mean, you know, this subject is really, I know it's really hard, that we've been discussing many times and back and forth. And tonight, I hope that we have the conclusion one way or the other. You're gonna think about what is going on. For me, I think is I want to stand, you know, with the option to give the teacher the option to grade and amend the January 28th resolution. So I'm open for other board members' colleagues' comments. Yep, go ahead, Patty, please.
Sure. I actually prepared a statement because I have been like doing a lot of hand wringing about this over the last several weeks. First, I want to start with some context, and some of that has already been provided, but I will add that no one will argue that this has been a difficult year for our students. With the sudden loss of peer support structure and non-family adult support structure and the stress of isolation. Some of our students were dealing with tense family dynamics after family members lost jobs or were required to work overtime in potentially life-threatening situations, or suddenly home 24/7, which could be good or challenging for students. Some of our students lost their housing. Some lost relatives to COVID. Some kids struggled to find a space to do their work or sufficient bandwidth to effectively log on. Some were required to watch siblings who were also supposed to be doing distance learning. Some students were willing to share what they experienced during the pandemic with their teachers or counselors. Some were not. So even if we think we know what additional challenges students experienced this year, we can't truly know. So that's one premise I'm going into this with. So what was the impact? We know that there were 18,615 Fs issued in the fall semester, which is well over 5,000 more than the previous year. Anecdotally, based on my conversations with teachers, there were also significantly more Ds issued than usual, though I don't have data on that. I want to share a little about our intention in January. With news of the significant increase in F grades, the administration brought forward a resolution in an effort to find some way to mitigate the impact of the pandemic on students. This offering was not about deserving or not deserving. I hear teachers talk about the students, that some students deserve an F, okay? And I've also heard ESSA say that this is not about advocating for students to get Fs. But be clear, this offering was not about deserving or not deserving. It was a way to help make up for the loss of support that we would ordinarily have been able to offer. It was a way for the board to cut our kids a break. God knows people have given me 10,000 or more breaks over my lifetime, and in significantly less dire circumstances. This is a global pandemic. Our generation has never seen anything like this. Hopefully we won't again. So what are the legal issues? You know, for us, changing an F grade to an NP was not really considered a material change in the sense that we didn't, you know, create a passing situation out of a not passing situation. I mean, we didn't change a D to a C or a C to a B. We just said not passing, not passing, not passing. It's a different form of the same thing. We can hear more from council on this later if anyone has any questions about that. But admittedly, our conversations with ESSA in January were not lengthy or as far-reaching as they could have been, which I, as one board member, you know, I regret. You know, I took some information as gospel, and you know, I wish I could take some more time to have investigated. At that time, I was of the understanding that ESTA, while not officially endorsing the resolution, was not opposing it either. This position seemed confirmed when the resolution was on our agenda on January 14th and 28th with no public comment on the matter. I thought it was a no-brainer. After the vote, I learned it was not a no-brainer and that there was another legal interpretation concerning the action which questioned the board's authority to implement the policy after the semester. After the semester, that was the focus. Does the board have the authority to implement the policy after the semester? ESTA asked us to rescind the resolution and make the issuing of NPs optional for teachers. Now, keep in mind, 6,444 students had already been told that their Fs had been converted to NPs. At that point, how do we, as a board and as an institution, go back on our word without creating a negative impact on our students and their families? How can we avoid bringing our students into this disagreement between the adults in their educational system that is designed to be a safe place for them to learn? This has been my biggest concern. From the start, I set out to find a solution where not a single student would be harmed by this dilemma. So where do we go from here? As Board President Lay remarked earlier, in March, our board created the following declaration. And I'll say it again. We stand for authentic, co-creative partnerships and declare that equity for our students is neither optional nor negotiable. For this, we hold ourselves accountable. Since January, I've had countless conversations with teachers and ESTA leadership, read all the emails, had numerous phone calls. I've also been working with the student governing board and have heard repeatedly from them that they are struggling in terms of their mental health and that this policy is something that they appreciate and have benefited from. I truly embrace this declaration and have struggled with holding the two seemingly at odds components, partnership with our teachers and equity for our students. After talking with teachers, my conclusion from those conversations is that there are basically two major concerns. One, the precedent-setting nature of implementing this policy after the fact, and two, the inequity for so many students who receive Ds. In these conversations, I learned that many teachers have already extended considerable grace to students by giving them Ds instead of Fs. If students had demonstrated, if they had demonstrated good faith effort. Many teachers would have welcomed the opportunity to have heart-to-heart conversations with these students who may have opted for the do-over that an NP would have provided instead of the D, had that been an option for them. I have also been told by ESTA leadership that their position on this matter is not that they are arguing to give the kids Fs. They are concerned about the impact of this board's decision today on future boards' decisions on grading. I've also become present to the impact this pandemic has had on teachers. They have been working diligently to come up with new and engaging lessons to present to often 30 blank squares on a screen. Many of them while caring for elderly parents or young children who may also be struggling to pay attention to their own remote classes. They may have been dealing with their own fears and feelings of loss or truly grieving family members lost to COVID. We can argue that they too should have said, we can argue that they should have said their piece in January when this decision was being considered. And yet I can make a case for extending grace to our teachers too, in light of all they have been dealing with this year. So how do we address our teachers' concerns while holding our students harmless and maintaining our stand for equity? The only way that I can see to honor the request that our teachers are making of us and hold all of our students harmless is to amend our resolution and trust teachers to voluntarily uphold the NP grades. If we want to be trusted, we must first trust. Now, I'm actually troubled by the teacher who said some will not be Fs. I'm actually speaking to those teachers to say, this is an appeal. This is a heartfelt, gut-wrenching appeal to teachers to convert F grades to NPs, not only out of your own sense of compassion for our students, but also in the hope that you would support the board in keeping our collective word to our students that was given to them on January 28th. Remember, this was a decision that we made together. I mean, Thomas's letter really, I appreciate Thomas's letter, you know, that this came about. There were missteps, there were misunderstandings, there were conversations that could have been had that weren't had on both sides. We got here, we gave our word to students. Now, how we get out of this is through complete cooperation and trust. So that's my request. I am standing for the possibility that 100% of our teachers will voluntarily issue NPs instead of Fs for the fall semester. ESTA leadership has committed to reaching out to all teachers to encourage, enroll, and persuade them to voluntarily fulfill the board's intention and the promise that was made to our impacted students. In addition, I acknowledge and appreciate the feedback from teachers who said that they wish they could have offered the NP option to students who received a D in the hope that they would choose to try again. Therefore, I am supporting the resolution that allows for teachers to extend the NP option to students and their families who choose that. It's not a unilateral option. It's students who choose that an opportunity to try again and get a better grade without an impact to their GPA. So in closing, I want to say I'm grateful for our student governing board members who have diligently advocated for the needs of their peers, especially during this trying year. I'm grateful for our administration who is always looking out for our teachers. I'm grateful for our teachers who have gone above and beyond during this horrific year to serve our students.
You're breaking up on my end.
Okay. I'm grateful for our ESTA teachers, ESTA leadership who is willing.
It was on my screen. I don't know about others.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, Manuel's frozen. I think maybe that's what's happening. I'm grateful for our ESTA leadership who willingly engage in hours of conversation with me as an expression of your commitment to work this out. And I'm grateful to my board colleagues. We have collectively done our inner work and respectfully struggled together to arrive at whatever heartfelt conclusion we come to tonight.
Thank you, Patty Cortese. Any other board comments? Board member Lorena Chavez, please.
Yes, okay. That's gonna be hard to follow. I did not write anything down, but a lot of what you said resonated, Patty. So thank you for giving context and really sharing your perspective. I think that's really true to you. So when I hear you say, I'm like, yeah, that's authentically Patty. And I think that's really important. And I'm gonna speak because I think it's important for people to understand what is Trustee Lorena Chavez's perspective and why. My gosh, I have, I don't have like lost sleep over this, but like it's really hard, right? And so what you're gonna hear from me today is a perspective of not just a trustee, but of a parent, of an educator. So yes, teachers, I've been in your shoes. I know how hard this is. I know how personal grading is. So I can empathize from that perspective. And I want to make that loud and clear. As an administrator, ACES, thank you so much for sharing your perspective loud and clear as well too. It's not easy. And also obviously as a board member. And so, oh my gosh, where do I start? I wanna thank everyone for their feedback throughout the month. It's really important for us to hear people's perspectives and feedback so that way we understand at a different level what is important to you. And if we miss something or there's some unintended consequences, we get a different perspective, a different view. So thank you. Regardless of whether it was something that I was aligned with or not, I think especially the moments that I'm not initially aligned with are the ones that I appreciate because that makes me push myself more and reflect more on like what is happening here that I'm not quite seeing. So I appreciate everyone, you know, bringing different perspectives to the table. And with that said, This also makes me want to continue extending invitations to everyone, right? Please come to our board meetings. I know it's a lot, but especially right now in this year, the pandemic, like we are trying to figure it out, and it is hard to do things without everyone here, right? Or at least multiple voices. So again, extended invitation. Hopefully y'all continue to show up in these numbers and even greater numbers so that we can hear for you. We can hear what is top of mind, top of heart. And with that, I'll go into like my reflections. When I reflect, I think about from my position as a leader, I think even though you have a position, I think it's really important to continuously reflect on what is happening, where do you stand, why? And I always strive to get it right for the sake of our children and our community. But let me tell you, I am human and I don't always get it right or every piece right. And that's okay, right? That's okay. I think what's important is that we continue to push ourselves. And so just like I push myself, and I've heard some people push themselves too, I think as leadership, especially leadership, it's important for us to push ourselves in that way. And in tonight's comments, I heard someone reflect and acknowledge and even apologize. And for that, I say thank you, because that is big. That is huge, especially in a public setting. And I think that's important for us to also continue modeling to our students, right? Like this was the experience, this was the journey. And today I apologize, or today I come forward and say X, Y, and Z, right? Our students are watching. So again, thank you for that. There are many people that have talked about this from different points of view and different things that resonate, right? I've heard some people feel very strongly about the equity piece. There are other people that feel very strongly about the student or family perspective, or the teacher perspective, or the legal perspective. And let me tell you, for me, I'm always about our children and everyone that plays a role in supporting them, right? I understand that our teachers have a big role in supporting our kids. So utmost respect to each and every teacher out there. Please don't ever doubt that. As a teacher, a former teacher, I know how hard your job is and will continue to be. That's just the nature of the work. And so with that, this was more of I was looking at it from that perspective. The legal stuff, there's always going to be legal stuff. But we have an amazing attorney too. And to Manuel's point, the board's understanding was that we were not doing anything illegal. And that is what I took every step of the way. Our legal understanding is that we had a strong position to set grading system. And we truly believe that it was legal and it was all right for us to take the stand. That is not to say, or to be misinterpreted, that other people have a different perspective, that this could be felt or seen or understood in a different way, that it is gray, that it is personal. It is multi-layered, and all is fair in this to be taken into account. But for the sake of addressing the legal piece, that is where I was coming from the legal perspective. Some of my board colleagues have mentioned that from the very beginning, we thought there was alignment, and there was clear misalignment, which has led us to today. We hear that for a lot of folks, there's a clear ask to do to have the option to do pass or F or no pass for the teachers to have that option, hearing that loud and clear. Something that I personally did not take into account, regardless of the unit piece, is the D grade, right? That's a great example of an unintended consequence. So that's something that I'm holding as well. I'm also holding legislation, AB 104, which I feel pretty strongly it's going to pass, and that regardless of what we do, that's going to supersede whatever we decide. And AB 104 is a perfect example, honestly, of not exactly where the board was in January, and actually is right now going into this conversation even, or exactly where, you know, the opposite arguments lie. It's a perfect example of that middle point, right? But to my point going earlier with we accept in this resolution, AB 104, it is important that we have our district really following up with every single family, because we just don't know if there's going to be a drop off or where of communication and for whom. And we want to make sure that we reach every single student and that they're aware of this opportunity, right? Assuming it becomes legislation. So with all of that, and in the sake of resolution 4, which is to have the opportunity to do a pass, no pass, I stand with being consistent, standing with 104, and having the option so that we can support both students with Ds and Fs to do a no pass for the teachers. That is where I stand.
All right, any board member comments for this time?
Just a clarification for Member Chavez. With regards to the January 28 action, your stand is what?
Consistent with resolution number 4 for the spring.
Okay, but
talking about
so 3 and 4.
Resolution 4 only addresses the spring, it doesn't address the fall.
I understand. And so my stance, it's not just to address one or the other, it's the whole picture. It's AB 104, it's yes to resolution 3 and yes to resolution 4.
Okay, got it.
So
yes to resolution 3. Okay, got it. So then resolution 3 is where the January 28 action is amended to provide an optional NP to teachers.
Right.
And you're saying you're in favor of that resolution in combination with the spring semester resolution number 4. That's
which is essentially the same thing, all because also a big factor in this is we have AB 104.
Right. Okay. Thank you. I just wanted to be clear.
I'm glad Manuel asked the same thing. I have the same question for you on the resolution option 3 and 4. Yeah, we heard from Lorena, we heard from Patty Cortese, we heard from Manuel Rivera. Now I want to ask my last board member, Brian Doe.
Actually, I have not weighed in on this part of the agenda.
Oh, you did not? Oh, okay.
We haven't heard from Bruce.
A member of the board.
We have not heard from Bruce.
And we need to hear from Bruce as well, our student rep.
Right. We need to hear from Bruce also. Yes. So you want to ask Bruce first before we ask?
Well, let's finish up with the board members and Mr. Doe, and then we'll
Please,
go to
Mr. Trustee Herrera, I will yield to you first.
No, you go ahead. I've spoken a lot.
So like all of you, I prepare a pretty lengthy statement. However, after hearing Patty, Trustee Cortese spoke, what I've learned are 2 things. One, never speak after Patty ever again, because that is the most heartfelt speech I ever heard all week. I mean, the one thing I would like to say that is, there's so many things that Trustee Cortese said that is actually in also my prepared statement. However, there's one thing I like to address. So on January 28th, when I make the vote, being a new board member, I honestly thought it was a no-brainer. I was surprised, in fact, slightly shocked to find out that it was actually far more complicated than I originally thought. The issues have much more nuances that I honestly did not consider. So I appreciate the teachers who have come forward, and I appreciate Esther's leaderships have come forward to speak about these issues. What I've learned today is not just up to today, not just the legal ramifications, but how we can improve, how it could be more equitable for our students. And some of those are from the D grade, as Board President Lay have spoken, as Trustee Cortez has spoken, and Trustee Chavez have also spoken. How we can do a better job for the students who who have worked hard and have received a D, but have not been considered in our original resolutions. So because of that, I would like to propose that we option for number 3, just as my colleagues have said earlier, because it's given an opportunity for us amended the resolutions and revert the authority back to the teachers, and also include in the dialogues for not only the F students, but those who have received Ds. Thank you.
Now, Board Member Herrera.
Yes, I'll just be brief this time, but AB 104 really shifted the epicenter of this thing for me, and as I'm hearing my board colleagues, for them as well. Without that option, it was going to be very difficult for me to try to see, students first, and adults, will figure it out, but students first, which is not to say that teachers don't also have students first, but we were dancing around a legal framework that the board had a completely different understanding, and to this day has a different understanding of. But with AB 104, the odds are so high that it's going to pass in some form that is going to remain substantially true to the current way that it is framed. And that means that in our also choosing to amend the January 28 action by reverting to, that is by giving teachers the option for the fall grades, giving teachers the option to change a grade, from F to no pass, from D to no pass, and any grade to no pass, that there is still a safety net. And the safety net is in 2 or 3 weeks, there will be an amendment to the state code, education code, that allows students and families to petition for a no pass during anytime during the 2020 to 2021 school year. And for those teachers who still believe that in exercising their right, that their judgment is correct, that an F is an F is an F, pandemic or no pandemic, those students do have a safety net now right on the near horizon. And it allows the board to take an act of faith, really, in seeking to be responsive to how visceral this issue is for teachers and for everyone, for students, for administrators, and so on. So I'm joining my colleagues as well in support of what is numbered as Resolution 3 to amend our January 28 resolution to grant teachers the option to change grades to no pass. And I'm going to echo Member Cortez's statement that she's holding the possibility, I believe we all are holding the possibility, that every single teacher is going to cooperate with the board in the way that we're wanting to cooperate with the teachers. And that we don't really see a single F. There's just too many extenuating circumstances. Even healthy adults have suffered mentally and emotionally, fatigue, Zoom fatigue, lack of focus, demotivating. Healthy adults. Imagine adolescents. This has been a curveball to match all the mother of all curveballs. So I'm repeating what Member Cortese said. In taking an action tonight to grant teachers the option of changing from F to no pass, or from any grade to no pass, we're looking for every single teacher to actually grant no pass for every student that wants one. And that'll take care of we're going to be subsequently discussing.
For every student, not that wants one, for every student.
For every student. Excuse me, yeah, but there will be B students who may want, RC. No, there are students who've earned B+ or whatever who are gonna say, I want a no pass. I want to redo. I've had a 4.0 before this, you know. So it's not automatic. The teachers will consult with their students. Some of them may say, leave it as it is because I want to get out of here. I'm not going to redo it. Others will say, give me another shot, even though I got a B, you know, because I could get an A and what have you. So, but it's going to be in the hands of the teachers.
So
when it comes to Fs or, you know, and Ds, yeah, we're really looking for good faith on the part of teachers.
Yes.
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 So,
we're actually asking for their voluntary cooperation.
From my understanding that you asked because the resolution, the option 3 just asks for only D, but when you mentioned about all the grade, which is A minus or B or C, we're gonna have to amend it for the option number 3. Am I hearing correctly?
Would you ask our legal counsel to clarify that point?
Yes, General Counsel.
I'm sorry, I don't understand the question.
Okay, from the option number 3, we only add the
F to no pass.
F to no P, but
and
the D, both D and F grade, letter grade, right?
Yes.
Will be the option for the teacher. But when I heard Board Vice President Manuel Herrera mention about, let's say that if other students have a B minus or C minus from their grade, would they be qualified onto the option number 3, or we have to amend for all grades?
They would not qualify. So any student who received, well, let me start out this way. The effect of resolution number 3 is that it will be optional with teachers. So if a teacher elects not to choose that option, then no student will have the option for the no pass grade. If a teacher, under resolution 3, if a teacher is inclined to grant that option to students, then it would only be, if the resolution is passed in its current form, it could only be made available to students who received a D or lower, that being a D or an F.
Okay, so we would have to amend it now if we wanted to make that available to students who have a 4.0, but this semester with all the difficulties got a B, B plus, B minus, and they want a do-over. Would we have to amend it in order to make it available to other students as well to request a no pass and the teacher to consider it?
That's correct.
But it's up to the teacher to be considered, right? Even though they request, but if the teacher did not approve it or did not, allow to do that, then even though the resolution for resolution number 3 would not going to be considered. Am I correct?
I believe that's right, yes.
So Madam President, Associate Superintendent Teresa Marquez has her hand up, and so does Brian Doe.
Okay.
Rest up plus, please.
Thank you, I appreciate it. I do just wanna, for clarification purposes, just inform the board that a D does give students credit. So I would just make sure that we're very cautious about a teacher choosing and electing to change the letter grade of a D to a no pass, because a no pass then does not give the students credit towards graduation. And so I just wanna make sure that if the option is gonna be left to the teachers to now change not only the F, but a D to a no pass, I wanna make sure that we're very careful about that, and that the D does not just, without consultation of the student and or parent, get changed to a D to a no pass, because that D does afford students credit towards meeting graduation requirements, as well as allows them to move on to the next sequential course. And so I just want to make sure that we're very clear on that piece of the process.
That's the one danger of moving the DCF. I think in our resolution in support of 104, it kind of reserves that space for the A, B, C, or D to be requested as a pass. We would probably be in support of 104 addressing those grade issues.
I see.
So what kind of language change, Mr. General Counsel, do we need to take into consideration that students with other grades besides D and F may want consideration, and to ensure, as Ms. Marquez just pointed out, that students are protected in their ability to agree with an action being taken, that some of them may want no change in order just to be able to graduate. They're not motivated to redo anything. They just are ready to be done and move on. How can, Mr. General Counsel, how can we incorporate that into any action tonight?
So on resolution number 3, on page 3, paragraph 3, that provides for the option of changing, the teachers having the option to change a D letter grade to a no pass. This section also provides that the teacher would not do it except after consultation with and consent from the parent, guardian, or education rights holder of the student, or the student, him or herself, if the student is over the age of 18. So the way to incorporate your change, Mr. Herrera, paragraph 3 on this page would apply not just to the D letter grades, but to all letter grades, A through D.
And we would be, and so this would, just to clarify, Trustee Herrera, you're saying that we want the resolution to extend the option to offer a no pass to any student who requests it regarding of their grade. And I can support the spirit of that. And yeah, I want to hear from the administration what would be the impact of, you know, suddenly having lots of kids wanting to retake classes that they've taken already. Like, what could that look like, and what would be the impact on the
if I may
overall?
If I may, as we read 104, what it does, what it affords a student the opportunity to do is to take an A, B, C, or D and receive a pass that does not count to the GPA. So it doesn't necessarily say I'm a B student or C student that wants to take a no pass and retake the course. I want to take it as a pass. I wish it was an A. I'll take it as a pass. I got a B, but it won't factor into my GPA. And I believe that's a distinction from what we're putting now that is different than what 104 intends.
Well, I would assert that it's useful, important to include the D for a no pass option in our resolution, because that's the difference between being A to G qualified and not, and would allow students to take a class again without being penalized from a GPA standpoint if they wanted to be college ready.
As it is in consultation. What I'm referring to is the A, B, or C that I thought I heard that there was a suggestion that they could take a no pass for that. Right. And that is not in alignment with 104, where someone would take the option of a pass, not having to redo the course, nor Correct. Having to apply to their GPA.
Correct. But so I heard Trustee Herrera saying maybe there's a 4.0, previously 4.0 student who got, you know, straight B's this last semester or something. Would that student have the option to just do or have a redo? Of course, that would probably take you like the whole year, but.
Well, I wasn't envisioning, you know, all A's to all B's. I was envisioning somehow one B grade crept in during the pandemic. And, you know, should they have the option for no pass to be able to redo? And that was brought up in conversation with some ESTA members. You know, I hadn't perceived it before, but then it was pointed out to me that really this is if you're opening this avenue up, it's equitable to open it up fully, you know, for students with different grades. And so what the General Counsel was just saying is that we could modify the language here, you know, just to not complicate it, Mr. General Counsel. I would be inclined to leave the language as is and simply add language, because we want a focus on those students affected by Fs and Ds, but add language that this recourse shall also be made available to students, you know, requesting a no pass consideration, you know, even with other grades.
I'd like to hear, I'm not clear on what the impact is based on what Glenn's response was. So I don't know, Mr. Vanderzee, if you could elaborate, if anyone else can. I'm not clear.
Well, what I hear Mr. Vanderzee saying is that the focus of AB 104 is not on the specific letter grades, but on the simple framework of pass, no pass, and that there would be an ability to request it, and by requesting it, receive it, and we're parsing it more. We're naming letter grades, you know, and now in the last few minutes, because of my comments, we're looking to enlarge the framework when we name letter grades, but the framework of AB 104 is just more simple. You know, is that correct, Mr. Vanderzee?
Not precisely. What I'm saying is that currently a student who, let's say, earned a C has the ability, if 104 passes, a student who has a C will have the option to receive, not to ask for a no pass, but to ask for a pass. So they're taking the credit. We're not removing the credits. We're not asking them to retake the course. They're just asking for a pass, and that pass not be applied to their GPA. If what I heard you say prior was that a student with an A, B, C, or D could request a no pass, and that would require a student to retake the course. That would take away credits that have already been earned with a passing grade, just not a grade to their liking.
Yeah.
And not only that, but the NP would show up on their transcript, right? It just wouldn't count in their GPA. So that might not end up being to their benefit.
Right.
And
I don't think you would want to have an NP.
Yeah.
They would want to have a pass, and that doesn't affect the GPA. Those who get the, you know, the B, C, etc.
So then we would amend the section that was referred to by our general counsel to provide an option to receive a pass versus the letter grade.
Mr. Vera, I'm still not clear. I'm sorry. I'm not ready to go into amending this without getting clear.
Yeah.
I am not. Sorry.
Okay.
I don't know. I can't wrap my head around it. The question is still not answered.
Yeah.
What are the unintended consequences? Like, what is the impact? I'm thinking, you know, on the teachers. I'm thinking on the students. I'm thinking on the administration. On other things that we're working on. I don't know.
I want to suggest that we not try to amend it. You know, at this point, in 2 or 3 weeks, there will be a framework that's available to all the students. You know, and it wasn't really my intention to kick off this kind of discussion. I was thinking out loud. You know, so the way that it is presented tonight in option 3, resolution number 3, I think addresses the board's concerns and issues, which is to provide teachers, amend the January 28 action to provide teachers the option to assign NPs.
Okay.
And, you know, with the understanding the board is seeking cooperation, you know, in terms of students not being saddled with.
Okay. All right, let's hear from our student governing board. Bruce Nguyen, we have not heard from you, so.
He's changing his device. He's coming back.
Hello, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes. Go ahead.
Okay, great. Yeah, sorry, but I was having internet issues, and I just got back and all. And funny that happened because like sort of made me reflect on the hundreds of other students who may have had like unexpected circumstances happen to them, right? Unexpected events or any difficulties that have arose because of the pandemic, and that made me more aware to the situation right now, what we're voting on or what we're discussing on right now, F's to no pass. And I just wanted to say that, yeah, I completely, empathize with all these students that are struggling, and the district should be able to continue forward with some sort of F's to no pass policy. And speaking as a student who has gone to all my classes and everything, I understand that teachers are also struggling as well. Teachers do have their own space, their own discretion, right, to teach the content that needs to be taught, and I understand that. However, students are being primarily solved, right, or served, and it's just we need to focus more on the aspect of students, right, and how they feel during the pandemic. And I can say personally that I've seen all of my peers struggle more than ever. I take one person I know. He's an athlete, right? He plays basketball. He has done well before the pandemic, but because of what happened, he hasn't been showing up to his classes, and he's been getting all F's, and unfortunately he hasn't been able, or he won't be getting the opportunity to graduate this year. And I really feel bad for him, and this is something the district could also take a look on. All the students that have not gotten that opportunity this year to make the most of their abilities. So that's what I wanted to say. And sorry if I keep cutting out or anything. It's just that it's just my internet is just really, really unstable, and that's what I wanted to say. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. Thank you, Bruce. Let's wrap up what we mentioned about the option 3.
Yeah, Madam President, I would like to move for approval of the resolution that is numbered 3, which is to amend the January 28 action and give teachers the option to assign no pass for the fall 2020 grades.
And no other
no adjustments to the.
All right. I just want to make sure that is correct, because we added on, and I was confused also. Thank you, Board Member Herrera. This motion by Mr. Herrera, and I could be a second.
I will revert that back to you, Board President Lei. You have the honor.
All right. Okay. Then I will be your motion to approve for the resolution number 3 to amend January 28 resolution and give an option for a teacher to sign up the grade.
So I want to point out that the resolution calls for a proactive actions by our administration to communicate with students and families, and for this to be expeditious, so want to point that out.
Yeah, appreciate that. And I know that administrators have to work very hard and have the process in place, so and work collaboratively with the teachers. So now we do the roll call, right?
I have a question before we go to roll call. I think there has been some hands raised. Are there some hands raised? Are there still time for comment? I think some of our students.
We have 2 individuals with their hands raised in the public.
All right.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Thank you. I did not.
All right, Madam President, are we allowing them each 2 minutes?
Yes.
Okay. Stephen Lowe, you have 2 minutes.
Hi, thank you. I really appreciate Trustee Cortese and Trustee Chavez's statements from earlier, and I want to thank everyone for sharing their thoughts at this meeting. As a grade conscious student, I just want to really quickly note that a student who earned a grade of a B or C would almost definitely not elect to receive a grade of an MP, even if they can retake the class, because that would suggest that they had earned either a D or F, which would be worse than the grade they're trying to replace and overall lower the quality of their transcript. Furthermore, at this point, completely rescinding the resolution from January at the very end of the school year would be a major disservice to thousands of students in ESUHSD. This decision on semester 1 was made and communicated months ago, and reasonable discussion was heard and public comment made. While I acknowledge the concerns brought up at this meeting, including the novelty of such an action, this has been truly an exceptional year, and with that, exception should be made. As the board considers the options on the table, it's also important to consider the possibility that AB 104 somehow does not pass or undergoes significant amendments, and students are not given the option the bill presents in its current form. As such, the district must provide its own safety net, even if the state ends up providing a second layer. Thank you to all the teachers, trustees, and staff, and everyone else who has supported students throughout this year. No matter the final decision from this meeting, and based on my understanding of the options on the table, I hope the board will not totally backtrack from the January 28th resolution and support options 1 and 4, or option 3 if modifications are made to the resolution as it stands now. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. We have another student, Mr. Glenn Venezzi.
Yes.
All right.
Paula Escobar.
Good afternoon, board. My name is Paula Escobar, and I'm an active member on the Eastside Union Student Governing Board. I'm here to support the resolution in terms of making Fs and Ds, the Fs, and like making that kind of flexibility for students in terms of giving the no pass option. And I really want to echo the sentiments expressed by my peer Stephen in terms of how students who earn a B and C are going to want to stick with their grade in order to maintain what they have accomplished. And in that sense, I feel like we're doing this really for our students who need it. We're doing it for our first generation students, our foster students, our students of color who have disproportionately been impacted by the pandemic and have been in various situations where their education has definitely been just completely different setting for them. And with that, we need to be able to adjust and meet the needs of our students. Thus, I really hope that the board will not only pass this resolution in terms of offering that no pass option, but also providing some more support services and systems when we return back to school, hopefully in the next fall, so students will be able to recover their grades and also be able to catch up with any work that they have missed and reconnect with their peers and staff. I believe with these fundamentals, we will be able to recover from the pandemic and build pathways for a better future where all of our students will be supported and feel nurtured in an education and environment that will support their growth. Thank you, board, and have a great afternoon.
Wow, excellent comment from student Paula Escobar and also Stephen Lu. Thank you for your comment and your thought to share with us. So the item 6.2, resolution number 3, moved by me, second by Vice President Herrera. Let's do the
Actually, I moved it and you seconded it.
Okay, I know Brian was just want to convert it, but I would honor for you to do
Can
that.
I also just clarify? Can I also just clarify that actually 6.02 has 2 portions that we're going to be voting on. So we're voting on the first half of 6.02, which is dealing with the fall semester. Correct? Council, do I have that right?
No, do you have a resolution?
The motion was to approve resolution number 3.
Yes, but that's not all of 6.02. We have another vote to take on 6.02.
Yeah, we still have number 4 is for the spring
that comes after this.
Right, but it's still all under item 6.02. I'm just clarifying for the record.
Mr. General Counsel, the option of no action and the option of rescission, do we actually have to take votes on that?
No.
No, that's what I thought. We don't have to take votes on that. We can
no,
just.
But we have. But we're going to vote on the spring semester, and so I'm saying that this.
Well, but that comes after this
6.02 has 2 votes, which is a very unusual thing.
Yes, we're going to vote on the fall. The wish is we just have the motion, and we will vote on the spring. So
which is a separate vote.
On the fall. Yeah, the second item.
Yes.
So, any other question? If not, then we ask Mary Gillen, please do the roll call, please.
Student Governing Board Representative Bruce Wynn, how do you vote?
I approve.
Thank you. Board roll call vote. President Lay?
Aye.
Vice President Herrera?
Aye.
Clerk Chavez?
Aye.
Member Cortese?
Aye.
Member Doe?
Aye.
Well, item 6.2, resolution number 3 passed unanimously. Thank you all, board colleagues, and also all comments from stakeholder, ESTA, teacher, ACE, and also student. Now we move to resolution option number 4, which is for spring semester.
So, Madam President, I would like to request the General Counsel to give a summary and overview of this resolution.
So resolution number 4 as stated earlier, deals with the spring semester of 2021, the current semester. Per board policy, the board has a right to create, or the board has the power to create a uniform system of grading and to implement it within the school district. With that in mind, resolution number, what we're calling resolution number 4, if it is passed by the board, it will change the grading system and scale to eliminate the F letter grade option and to replace it with a no pass to designate the student's failure to satisfactorily pass the course, and implement a modified grading scale for this semester only of an A, B, C, D, or no pass. And if the student receives a no pass, which would be the failing grade designation, then it would not negatively affect the student's grade point average as calculated by the district on a district transcript. And again, this would only, if it's approved by the board, it would be for this semester only.
Well, thank you, General Counsel Rogelio. I would like to ask that, should we be consistently, when we already passed the option number 3, now we move to the spring and we will, discuss about the ABCD with no pass. And I was wondering that, I know that all the teacher has the syllabus for the grading. Now we are taking in consideration that with no pass. And I was wondering that, are we doing consistently with the student has a D grade, or we want to pass this resolution, option number 4 for spring, will be contradict with what we already approved for resolution, for option number 3. So I want to open up for a discussion before we make the motion.
I'm hearing you ask if it's consistent or compatible with the action we've already taken on resolution 3. In my understanding, this remedies one of the criticisms of the January 28, which was that it was done after grades had been issued.
Correct.
Grades are due the 27th of May. An action tonight would be in front of that, with a framework established by the board, which eliminates F as an option, provides no pass as the replacement option. And it isn't apples to apples, oranges to oranges. There's differences in the January 28 and the way we have amended it. And now, we're taking an action. That is, we're proposing to take an action with this resolution. And I'm mindful that ESTA President Jack Hamner earlier seemed to contest even the board's prerogative to establish a grading system, a uniform grading system, and the method of calculating GPA, even if we did it before grades are issued. And I think I start to part ways at that point with, so again, it's in the purview, if this is approved tonight, it's in the purview of the teacher to choose, but they have available some they didn't have available when they issued grades for the fall. They now have a no pass option. And we're looking for them to just live to the spirit of this, that, the year has been so undermining and extraordinary for full abilities to be demonstrated that instead of an F, it's a no pass that is being made available only for this semester. So, yeah.
Thank you. Board Member Patty Cortese.
Well, I'm basically just going to say ditto, because that was what I had intended to say. And I just want to reiterate that in all of my meetings with, the Assembly and with ESTA leadership, really what I kept hearing over and over again was the concern that this was done after the fact. So I think we have like I said earlier, we made, in essence, a promise to our students. And for the first semester, all I can do is appeal from the depth of my being to teachers to voluntarily support the board's intention in keeping our word. And so I think, to me, this resolution is consistent with keeping our word to students that we gave them on January 28th, and that, you know, consistent with all the comments that we've heard from students, from administrators, from teachers about how difficult this year has been on students, and the fact that we don't know. Teachers, I appreciate that you know a lot about our students, but there's much that we can't know because they don't tell us, and we can't walk in their shoes. So I'm fully supporting this resolution tonight.
Okay, Board Member Chavez, go ahead, please.
So I just wanted to take a second to uplift or reiterate what Paula and Stephen shared from the student voice, the student perspective, that they want to make sure that there is still an opportunity for them to engage with their teachers around this option, and it's not just black and white. And this is doing that for them as well. So just wanted to put that at the center as well.
Yes, thank you. Any other board member comments? Any public comments, Mr. Vanderzee?
There are no
public comments.
Raised and no written
right.
comment.
Thank you. So let's have a motion for the item, well, 6.02, but still the option number 4, which is for the spring semester, implement a change to grading system and grading scale for the spring semester 2021, only to A, B, C, D, no pass, and P. I need a motion.
Bruce, do you have any additional comments?
No, I support that students are being considered here. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. So who has the motion for this item?
I'll move to approve.
Second.
All right, let's do the roll call, please, Mary.
Student Governing Board Representative Bruce Wynn, how do you vote?
I vote approve.
Thank you. Board roll call vote. President Lay.
Aye.
Vice President Herrera.
Aye.
Clerk Chavez.
Aye.
Member Cortese.
Aye.
Member Doe.
Aye.
Well, this item passed unanimously, and this is the last item on our discussion tonight. I really appreciate every comments tonight from board colleagues, from stakeholder, from teachers, from students, especially from our student. We heard all of your comments, and I know that this item is really dear to everyone's heart. And I cannot say that we are working together collaboratively, and we want our students to succeed, as well as we appreciate, you know, the hard work of our teacher during the pandemic. And we're probably gonna move on after this meeting tonight, because we still have a lot of issue later on when we have a reopening school. And I really want us to, you know, leave everything behind, then we move on to the next issue, you know, when we have a reopening school. So by this one, I don't know anyone has any other comment. If not, then I'll adjourn the meeting, and we will have
Brian Doe has a comment.
Brian, go ahead, please. Brian, I didn't see you, sorry.
Don't worry. First of all, I just want to thank everyone who speak tonight, and all the email from all the teachers who have sent it in. As a leadership, I also want to specifically thank the administration for how incredibly hard work. And I know as the way we vote on these resolutions, it will cause enormous amount of hard work for our staff and our administration. So thank you for doing that. I also want to thank our legal counsel, Rogelio Ruiz, for responding and working so hard for us during all these resolutions during the weekends. So thank you very much. And I want to thank my board for continuing to pushing ourselves forward. And so to paraphrase what my Trustee Herrera said earlier, this meeting, we don't just find our way, but we find our way forward, and we find our way forward together. So I want to thank my colleagues on the board for your diligence, your hard work, and your passions on this issue for our students. Thank you very much.
Absolutely, and I know that I appreciate Vice President Manuel Herrera has been working with me on this issue in early morning, as well as our General Counsel has been worked very hard to draft all of those amendments as a resolution. So we will see each other again as board study session on Thursday night, and we're looking forward to working with every one of us. So.
And for the board and some invited participants, it'll be an in-person meeting, and for the public, it'll be on Zoom.
Okay, yeah, we'll be in-person meeting, yes. And so the meeting adjourned.